Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about a ton of tournament results over the past few weekends. We had two Springfest, one in Georgia, Duluth, as well as Germany. We also had the WGP in Singapore and Yokohama, as well as some VGCs held across many parts of the world, so there's a lot of results to cover. If you guys need any coaching for the BRO or BSF season, feel free to hit me up on my Metafy. Link is in the bottom right hand corner. Feel free to book a session and we can get started. So looking at the Georgia Standard top 4 final standings, and there's one deck that is not like the other, and that is part of the first place team. So congratulations to Fullbringer. First place was a KHEIOS deck. Overlord and Jet, very surprising. We'll look through the KHEIOS list in a sec. Mid Plus coming second with Overlord, Jet and Eva. More Than a Piece of Paper Please. Third place with Jet, Youth and Eva, and then Tri-Fighters with Flagberg, Jet and Minerva. So obviously we've got to take a look at the KHEIOS list. KHEIOS is very, under the radar completely. This deck is very memey. Very Highlanderish, and I can see why at the moment this deck isn't as high, of high potential, because essentially if this deck becomes super meta breaking, then the card that, interacts with another card that makes this insane will probably break the premium format as well. So obviously, trying to gatekeep into like a certain power level, but very cool to see that KHEIOS, actually did really well. So I heard this player also, had their fair share of, wins and losses, but the wins were the ones that counted, and the losses, obviously the teammates carried as well. So, that's the whole beauty of team format, right? So, if you're having a bad round, then your teammates carry you up, and then, another person has a bad round, and then you pick them up as well. So very cool to see. Pretty much, near max rarity. Very sad on these two normal KHEIOSes, but otherwise very cool deck. Now that we have like a lot of cards in the card pool, you're able to create I guess a more streamlined way to get the threshold of cards that you in your deck. The good thing about the grade 1 Mikani, it counts as essentially 8 copies of the grade 3 Mikani, but as well 4 extra unique cards in your soul as well when counting for KHEIOS' skill. But otherwise everything else is very Highlanderish, playing 4 Flaming Pony to essentially soul charge your unique names, swirlers as well. The good thing about swirlers is that you can also call it out using this order, so making it pretty fat on a rear guard because you're soul charging a bunch. So yeah, always good to have a beat stick there too. So yeah, very cool KHEIOS list. Congratulations to the player bringing this. Very cool to see. Now, Georgia V Premium happened, and a big shout out to my boy Norman coming first place. WCC TTH baby. First place was Steam Maiden. Good thing it's gone now. Ange and Luard. Second place was Kingslayer x Crow's Nest. So this is Crow's team with Maiden, Ange and Luard, and funnily enough the same position as the first place team as well. Third place was KSC, so Kingslayer cards and Angel, with Regalia, Markuth, Melek and Maiden. And then fourth was For Loco Forever with Luard, Harry and Night Rose. Again, one of the decks is not like the other, which is Harry. This deck doesn't run draw nulls and decides to opt for the 30k shield crit, playing a 8-4 split. Pretty interesting. Otherwise everything else is like as your standard Harry deck kind of serves to you. You have like your divisions of the Magia dolls, but nothing too out of the ordinary. I think the only thing that is a little bit questionable is obviously the crit sentinels over the draw PGs. But I guess, sometimes it's better to just one card guard something instead of, ditching a draw PG to, I don't know, nullify an attack or whatever. But I can see that this deck works a little bit better in a teams format because, the decks that you want to PG against, such as, your Astral Poets, any restanding Vanguards, you're 66% less likely to see them just because it's a teams format. So yeah, cool Harry deck. Very cool. I haven't seen Harry top in a while. So yeah, that coming back, very cool. And then jumping to premium, Crit Club presents Team Bababui. First place was Kutia, so Highlander, DP, Dialiner, and Steam Maiden. Second was Solar Eclipse with Mega Colony, so Gridora, Highlander, and Steam Maiden. Third place was Kingslayer's AAA with Deleters, NLK, and Maidens. And in fourth place was CFU on a roll with Maiden, NLK, and Night Metal. Very cool distribution. Finally getting to see, you know, some DI love. I think DI was kind of missing for a while, and you know, very cool to see that DI is slowly creeping back. But I'm not too sure how it will go in this next format, obviously post the ban list as well. Then jumping to Germany, so the other side of the world, kind of, not really. So first place for standard was Navigators with Minerva, Jet, and Eva. Second place was Team Alliance, H. Koma Hassan with Jet, Barrow Magnus, and Eva. Third place was Team Cardiff Online. This was, I think, Jay's team and Dave Vex's team. Coming third place with Eva, Jet, and Minerva. And then No Horny Bonk Squad with Eva, Jet, and Youth. Pretty much a meta dog distribution. A lot of these decks, if not all of the decks, other than probably the Barrow Magnus, is very meta relevant. This is pretty much as, you know, top tables as you get, especially in a very high competitive environment. This is pretty much the lineups that you'll see at the top tables if you're going to a regional this season. And jumping to V Premium. So V Premium for Germany ended up becoming singles, probably because the numbers didn't make the quota. So first place was a Rising Nova Spike Brothers list. Second was Mortis with Battle Sisters. Third was a Glendios, and fourth was Maxime Jalan with Steam Maiden. Yeah, pretty interesting. The fact that we now see another, you know, regional with very low V Premium number counts is a little bit concerning, because I think the other one in California only had like 30 players and 10 teams or something. So yeah, anyhow, very cool to see results anyhow. Then going into premium, this is probably more the exciting bits. First place, Shiny Cardboard Addiction with Highlander, KHEIOS, and Gridora. Second place was Navigators, another team that, you know, back-to-back days, topping, with Minerva, Steam Maiden, and Eradicators. Third place was 8's Gaming with Jewel Knight, Highlander, and Maiden. And then fourth place was Team Cardiff Online, again, topping back-to-back days, with Eradicator, Maiden, and Minerva. You know, people think that Eradicators is kind of off the planet. I beg to differ. I think Eradicators is still a very good deck, and it's just been overshined due to the fact that Stunverse has been, you know, restricted to one. But I think a lot of the people who, you know, invest time into playing Eradicators and knowing how to, I guess, progress with it, will see results, and that's why we see the two Eradicators here. Then the WCC VGCs happened in Jakarta. So this was ran by Wirap. So very cool to see, you know, the premium landscape, not only in, you know, NA and EU, we also see it in the Asia region as well. So the top 8 decks were 3 Maidens, 2 Highlander, 1 Pale Moon, which is a Harry deck, 1 Nociel, and 1 Lawkeeper. So I'm actually not going to go through the Harry deck. I'm actually going to go through the Lawkeeper deck. Lawkeeper deck's pretty interesting. So this Lawkeeper deck plays the what's it called? Blazing Flare, as well as the Eugene Order. I think this one allows you to draw each time you retire. Kind of makes sense, because when you ride into something like, I don't know, Dungeon Valor, you have stuff like this grade 2 here. I forgot it. Whatever it was used for Overlord, it's like, you know, bottom deck normal unit or something, CB1 retire. So a lot of these cards retire, and even on like your grade 3 ride, right? Because, you know, a lot of your stuff retires, like Blazing Flare Dragon itself also works on rearguard. Mass retiring and drawing a bunch just on your stride turn, or even on your grade 3 turn, allows you to kind of tank through that first stride. Otherwise, you know, everything else is just as your normal Kagero deck, but this is a very different way to approach Kagero. A lot of the people look at Overlord as being like one of the decks to kind of go into Kagero for premium, but obviously, you know, a lot of people overlooked Lawkeeper, and I think when Lawkeeper first came out, it was a premium implication written on a card, and not a lot of people had ventured into it. So very, very cool to see that a lot of people are looking outside of the Overlord scope and, you know, investing time to build something like a Lawkeeper Blazing Flare deck. So very interesting to see how this build kind of, you know, starts maybe a trend in the Western side, but much more interesting to see this type of deck than an Overlord deck for sure. So yeah, that was the deck I wanted to cover for the WCC VGCs. So big shout out to Wirab for hosting that. And now we jump to Japan. So Japan had the Vanguard Deluxe in Yokohama. This event was separated into 2 blocks with the introduction of set 10. So that's the Masque, the Gandiva, the Hexaorbs, and this is pretty much the distribution for block A. A lot of the decks are still Eva, are still Messiah, are still Jet, and Ebisu. These are the 4 biggest decks, but as you can see on the screen, there's 6 Gandiva. So I think a lot of these decks also, you got to take with a grain of salt that WGP in Japan takes into consideration diversity cut. And if a lot of people are, you know, looking at Drajeweled Masque or Leonon or decks that have a bit more potential, then bringing something like a Gandiva will get you into the diversity cut if you go X1. But pretty cool that, you know, Gandiva, a new deck that came out in set 10, is, you know, having an immediate impact as well. And then obviously looking down the chain, you have like your Hexaorb and very little Drajeweled. There is one Lukia deck there, very cool. Really would like to see what the Lukia deck looks like. I think Fuzzy has it on his website, but yeah, I'll probably go dig for that later. But a lot of these decks, you know, the big section is the Gandiva. And looking into the topping teams, the winning team brought Lutetia, Overlord, and Ebisu. And as I explained before, I think Lutetia is one of those decks that a lot of people are underestimating. Underestimating because, you know, people are like, oh yeah, why play Lutetia when Overlord is kind of the same thing and does this, you know, the exact same thing as Lutetia can, but better. But not always, right? The difference between Lutetia and Overlord is that Lutetia gains hand because of the Yuika abuse, right? Where Overlord doesn't do that. Overlord, you know, gets its a lot of its engine from ditching Halbays, and then, you know, you hit your OT and you get a free 2 cards, 3 cards if you hit draw triggers. And yeah, it's very trigger reliant, whereas Lutetia is, you know, raw guard that you get by farming off cards on the board. And then obviously, you know, the draw 1 of Lutetia's skill, and then obviously a restanding Vanguard. So yeah, cool to see that the first place list was completely off meta. Well, other maybe than the Ebisu. But yeah, looking at the second place team though, Jet, Eva, and Gandiva. So again, like I said, you know, immediate impact after the DBTO 10 dropped. Gandiva immediately, you know, has an impact, and we'll see the list in a sec. Third place was Eva, Gandiva, and Ebisu, and then fourth place was Messiah, Eva, and Megalonozuchi or something. I call it the snake, the Dragon Empire snake. So yeah, looking at the Gandiva list. So I actually tested this with Kai while I was in Sydney for the Pokemon Regionals. This deck, to be honest, has a real high power spike the moment you jump from your first grade 3 turn into Persona Ride grade 3 after you've bound like a bunch of cards. The power spike is massive. I think it like increases by like 20k per attack, and then it can multi-attack with the grade 2. I think it was this one. It was like top 3 core 1 or something. So yeah, pretty impactful deck. But I think the deck kind of creeps up, you know, as the game progresses. But yeah, like the moment you jump from the first grade 3 to the second grade 3 with the Persona Ride and, you know, the multi-binds, yeah, the power spike is actually pretty massive. And one thing to note also, this distribution, we barely see any Wellstras. I would have thought Wellstra would be like one of those decks that, you know, has a huge impact. Like Wellstra, I rate Wellstra. Wellstra is a very, very good deck, and now that in May we get the PR, the grade 1, the little doggo, I'm surprised I don't actually see any Wellstras here. And you know, if you are going to Davangasai, you know, later on in the next month or so, or the next WGP, I think there's one in Osaka or Kyoto, I don't remember where it is, you might want to bring a Wellstra. Like there's no Wellstras here, and it might be just a pick to get you past the diversity cut as well. And then yeah, I think I'm not too sure if any of the other, you know, Asian countries like Malaysia or anything have a WGP coming up soon. But if it's a teams format and, you know, you need to bring diversity cut stuff, well, so might be the plan. And then looking at Block B. So Block B, we can definitely see a more concentrated view of what DBT010 meta is like. So, you know, you still have your Evas, Jets, and Messiah. As I explained before, Gandiva's there. And then now we see Drajeweled and Zorga, the two big mass decks. I had a lot of, you know, foresight into Drajeweled and it being good. And I had a lot of hopes of it being good. And thank God it is good, right? My only caveat to that is that when I played Drajeweled, I felt like I was missing a turn or like I was missing something. But obviously, you know, again, taking with a grain of salt, these results also, you know, factor in diversity cut. But the fact that there's 5 Drajeweled, there is no way that 5 Drajeweled would make it without winning, you know? So yeah, very cool distribution. Now we can see a huge meta shift in the JP format with the introduction of set 10, something fresh. But obviously, you know, not obviously cutting out decks that already pre-existed in the format. The top 4 teams. First place was the most meta team, Ebisu, Jet, and Eva. Second place was a pretty cool team composition, not gonna lie. Drajeweled, Eva, and Hexaorb Aquamarine. Third place was Gandiva, Overlord, and Jet. And then fourth place was Minerva, Jet, and Eva. We're gonna look at the Drajeweled and Hexaorb lists. Drajeweled, very, very simple. You know, if you have a Drajeweled deck, feel free to build this list. It's very standardized. The only problem is that we don't actually have the PR yet, and I hope this drops very soon. This PR is very, very, very good. Pretty much a Rokogore, but easier to fulfill. And yeah, it just allows you to tutor for any card that is grade 2 or higher from your soul back to hand, your Persona Rides, your Rokogores, even copies of her. Yeah, she just literally does everything for the deck. Pretty interesting to see that this Drajeweled list ran the grade 3 from the TD, but it kind of makes sense, especially in a diversity cut. You know, you're looking at the grade 3, then, you know, if you have a unique grade 3 in comparison to all the other Drajeweled lists, then, you know, you might make it in. But I think normally you would run this Drajeweled and then obviously maxing out on the mask. Only running 3 masks because you're running the grade 2 that allows you to search for the mask itself. Makes sense. And then, you know, 4 swirlers because 4 swirlers. Swirlers are good. So yeah, very cool Drajeweled list. This is probably as, you know, cookie cutter as it gets. I think this is a very good list to kind of base your deck off. But obviously, you know, slight tweakings here and there. And I do rate this. Running the Crate Elemental Overtrigger is much better in the Drajeweled deck than running the Dark States because the Vanguard already has inherent crit, and if your opponent's guarding your middle column, right, they're PGing your middle column because it has crit. The moment you put 2 lots of 100 million onto each side, your opponent's like not guarding unless they have 2 PGs. So yeah, very, very cool list. I highly rate this. And then now looking at the Hexaorb list. When I first saw Aquamarine, I was like, this is the high rolliest deck I've ever seen, and it is awesome. I love it. Like, first of all, the art looks amazing. Second of all, it's a 5 attack deck that essentially doesn't cost anything. It's just like Soul Blast 1 to restand a rearguard, which is pretty nuts. But yeah, other than that, it utilizes a lot of like scry checkers. So this one here, so pretty much it allows you to scry the top card, put it top or bottom, pretty much when it attacks, using the cycle card as well. This cycle card is insane in Aquamarine. Pretty much look in the top 2, add 1 to hand, and then put the other one on top or bottom of the deck. It's ridiculous. And you know, this deck, because all your 3s are the same name, you can Persona Ride on the original Hexaorb as well. And then, you know, you still have your Chalice to Persona Ride. Pretty much everything is there. You can scry for anything, grab anything. Yeah, it's pretty high roll. Definitely a deck I will pick up and, you know, play around with. Definitely a deck that I think I will enjoy. And, you know, the art looks good. So, yeah, that's Hexaorb. So those are the two very interesting lists from the Vanguard Deluxe side from Japan. We also had Vanguard Deluxe happen in Singapore, so Suntec City. 2 Evas, 2 Messiahs, 2 Jets, 1 Youthberg and 1 Drajeweled. Again, Drajeweled is one of the new decks that are coming up because of the Masque introduction. Yeah, very, very cool to see immediate impact from that particular deck. And then looking at the top 4, all Strad deck set stuff. So, you know, first place Messiah, second place and third place were Jet, and in fourth place was Messiah. So yeah, that is what went down in the Vanguard Deluxe in Singapore. We also had a few VGCSs, so Trail Vanguard Challenge Cup that happened on the 25th of March. So a lot of the portions are Eva, Messiah, Jet, and Ebisu. Now this is where we see Welstra, and then a little bit of the Snake and Overlord as well. And then another VGCS that also happened was the Daiwa VGCS. It's a 5v5 team event. A lot of the teams brought Jet, Eva, Messiah, Ebisu. These are the big 4 decks. If you're playing in the Western format, then, you know, obviously the 2 Stride decks and Eva are the big decks. Welstra is there as well, and then Overlord. Are these like... It's very similar in terms of the pie chart distribution. I guess the only thing that is missing is a Snake. Yeah. So a lot of these teams, you know, brought mutual decks, and I think it's pretty defined what the top 5 are: Chronojet, Ebisu, Welstra, Eva, and Messiah. Again, big shout out to Fuzzy for all the information that is covered in this video. Please make sure to check out his website. Everything is on there. I go there for all the lists, everything that I need, you know, to fuel my locals, you know, help people out with deck lists and stuff like that. An insane resource, and take advantage of it, you know? Take advantage of it, make the most use out of the information that Fuzzy gets, because he is an amazing Vanguard treasure, and, you know, can't thank him enough for that. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys like this video, pop a like, comment down below what you guys think of all the results that happened over the past few weekends. I think we have some Springfest coming up, so we'll be covering that on this channel as well. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.